Okay.
Let me get myself ready. Am I ready? Yes. No, that's not. Let's be done. Give me one moment, gentlemen.
Who are you talking to, gentlemen?
And ladies, too. There are some beautiful ladies with us tonight.
Recording in progress.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the June edition of, oh, here's Dennis coming in, of Keeping Up with Tech. Our typical format tonight will be open forum, and then we can go into the topics that I presented in the email. That being said, who'd like to open up the floor with the first question of the evening? Great.
Oh, I have a question. I just don't see where the hand is to raise.
Oh, well,
Should be on the
It
bottom.
should be on the lower bar on the bottom.
But I,
If you
Just,
don't see
you know,
a
you can do
hand,
this too. You
look
can do
at
this too.
React.
Hi.
If you don't
Yes.
see a hand on the bottom bar, look at the React button, tap it, and you'll see a bar that says raise hand.
I have to see a react button. I don't have a lower bar. What I have on the bar is my usual bar, my system.
You have to move your cursor down to bottom
Okay.
of the real view screen to see.
Okay. Hey,
Zoom.
Tom, what's your
Yes,
question?
So, okay, my question. Well, it's a combination thereof. Does anybody want to argue that when you shut down your system in the standard shutdown method, that or power off, whatever you call it, that your system just cleans up and stops? It doesn't really turn off everything. So when you power back up later, when you do a turn on, it picks up from where it was. Basically, like if you're running a movie, it would stop in the middle, but know where to restart in the middle and keep going.
Yes, that's called fast startup. Fast startup is an option in the power settings of buttons. And you have to click on a link to activate change. And the first item of 4 towards the bottom of the screen is to be able to have fast boot on. It creates a memory image of what you were running at the time and puts it into a hibernate folder. When you start up your system, whether it's a restart or a full start, it will then use that image to restore it to where it was. If you don't want that to occur, that you want to clear out everything, before you select restart or shutdown, hold down the shift key, tap with the mouse pointer the restart or shutdown function, and release the shift key. You'll get a screen that'll come up that when you next log in, that not log in, excuse me, as you start booting up, it'll give you a new screen and it says continue or troubleshoot your device, etc. Just hit continue and it'll boot up in a normal manner, not with the fast boot. So it might take a little bit longer for your startup to occur.
Where do I find this fast startup?
Fast startup.
The reason
go to
the
power
reason I
settings.
ask,
Go to your systems, power settings, not recovery.
Okay. That's
Got to go
not
back.
here.
Top left corner, arrow. Top left
Oh,
corner,
sorry.
arrow.
Back.
And yeah, click it once. There, stop. Now, find power. That's power and yeah. And what you have in here is some advanced settings. Now, if I remember correctly, the third line there. Yeah, that one. Click on it. And now you have the basics here, but there's another advanced feature to let you go in and change the actual settings. Here we go. It says lid and power buttons. Click there. And we want, no, they're not giving you a direct link to the.
No, none of this is fast startup. And I remember Bob told me once about how to turn this off.
There's
Can I insert my 2 cents here?
Oh, please.
Okay. What I found online was that if you were on your original screen before you get in this far, I'm not saying do it, but if you're on the original screen with the little window in the lower left corner and you did a click on that one, I think it was a left click on that one, and you went to.
You said little window. What little window are you? You
Well,
lost me on that one. Look at my screen here. What am I looking for?
You'd have to get out of this altogether.
Okay, are you talking about my desktop?
Yeah, and I don't see it here. It would be on the.
You're hiding your taskbar. He's looking for the taskbar.
Yeah, the far left, that one.
Okay, what am I looking for?
Okay, at this point in the up on the top where you've got the search, the little search right there. You type in, don't do it, but I'm telling you what I did on the older machine, and it worked fine. I would type in the letter or the word power CFG, a space, and I'll call it a slash, but I think it's a backslash is what you'd call it. You have power CFG with a period in there. Don't put the period there.
There's the command.
Okay, put a space in there. Whoops.
No, I'm going to run the command as an administrator. Where is it? Where'd it go?
Yeah, as an administrator, but
that was in the left side, at the right side panel of that screen that you had up.
Oh, it went away. It disappeared.
Well, that's because it's sitting down there.
You didn't put the whole command in, sir.
Okay, that's why. Okay.
Just put in that search bar, that search bubble.
Power CFG.
Over on the right side, it says run as administrator.
Okay.
Put in your administrator password.
Oh, is this it? Drag to move.
Unless you've disabled it.
No, it.
Are you the administrator right now on this?
Yeah.
On your machine?
Yes.
Then when I was running as an
I
administrator,
don't see it showing up at all. It hit it.
I made it all one line.
Okay.
I didn't hit enter when you must have.
Okay. I'm going to stop what I'm doing and go ahead and continue saying what you did. And then we're going to go to Bob.
Yeah. Well, before you hit enter, you can let those guys look at it and say, do it or don't do it. Okay.
Okay.
Go back to that screen that had the window in it.
You want me to go and redo this again?
Start doing it again. Yes. So we'll have the little command sitting on it. They can see.
Okay. All right. Let me do a share. And we're going to do this. And we're going to do power CFG. Does everybody see this?
Yes. Put a space in there.
Space.
Now type a slash. And now type in an H, a space, put a space in there, and type in OFF. Now at this point, don't do it, but at this point you hit enter. This is what I did. And what this is supposed to do is turn off the
Hibernate.
function of the automatic,
It
what would
turns
you
off,
call it? That automatic restart where it would pick up
it turns off hibernate.
No.
which
the
is-
hibernate. Yeah.
No.
But
All right,
the
now-
fast boot still relies upon it and uses the space regardless.
Okay, all right.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Let's pause. Let's stop. Bob is
Yeah.
rolling over here. He's
That's
bubbling with
why I'm asking.
information. Please, Bob, salve us. Be our salvation.
Well, go to chat, follow the link for details on this.
Follow it.
I would like to share what you do because it's very quick. So let me share screen sharing, and let me drop this guy down. Search bar. Can everybody see that I'm going to my
Right.
search?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is how you get to the old-fashioned control panel, which we all know and love. Now, we get from here into, we need power configuration. And I can probably search
If you
for
do,
power.
if you do the view by and
Power
change it-
options. There we go. Power options. Change power saving. Choose a power plan. Show additional blah 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 blah. blah,
you know, the buttons upper left.
Just a minute. Drop down. Now choose what the
That one-
power
that
buttons
one's the
do
power button.
and change settings that are not currently available.
Right.
Requires administrator. And turn on fast startup I have unchecked because I do Linux. But this one is normally checked by default. And this helps start your PC faster, etc., learn more. And you can learn more about it. Or you can uncheck it and restart your computer, and that's it.
So quickly, Bob, now that we're honed in on fast startup, can you please tell us the advantages and disadvantages of fast startup?
Fast startup has the advantage that you, as Tom says, can pick up where you left off. You can boot in just a few seconds rather than many seconds. Your system will not go through its entire pre-boot routine. It does this, as Tim says, by creating a miniature Hibernate file, much smaller than the standard Hibernate file. Takes up less disk space that way. And fast startup has some disadvantages. If you need to troubleshoot, NTFS partitions will be in a locked state, which will make it difficult to do anything with them. Also, there will be files that will be marked as open in use, and that can make life difficult if you have to troubleshoot. If you are dual booting with any other operating system, including Linux, you will not have access through Linux to your NTFS partitions. And I usually like to share at least one of those. So there are additional disadvantages to fast startup. It doesn't do the BIOS post upon boot, and that means you might not see some hardware issues happening as early and as well. I think I can just simply summarize how you get to it. You go to the old-fashioned control panel, hardware and sound, power options, system settings. And then you have to hit that little link that says show options which are not currently available. It's under what the power buttons do. What the power buttons do. That's where you find it, and it's easiest to find it in Windows 10 and 11 using the search box.
And though Windows has been claiming they are going to absolutely remove control panel, we don't know when that will happen. They've been saying that for already at least 2 or 3 years now, and it could be another year or two before they actually obsolete and remove control panel. That means you got to find all your settings wherever they're buried in the current Windows 11 settings menu. And that's where I was looking for a link to that panel that Bob just showed us, and be able to change that setting and be done with it. But they haven't put in a link as yet to get to that window.
Yeah, one reason I brought this up was in the article I was reading, it was also saying something about how there could be problems with updates if this function is not in place. If it-
Never had it happen.
Yeah, I've
Well,
never
neither
had
have
it
I.
happen.
I haven't had the problem either. But
It's
if you're not,
it's just a case where this hibernation occurs in 2 places. If you are a person, especially with a laptop, a lot of people, they save their work by doing a hibernate. And then when they come back, it's all there again. On the other hand, since you turned it off, you don't have to have that unless you don't use hibernate even on a laptop. But with a fast boot, it still uses part of the hibernate function behind the scenes. That's why there's 2 parts to this. And that's why I was saying just turning off hibernate like you didn't stop the system from creating a hibernate image when you're doing a restart or a shutdown.
Wayne?
Yeah, I when I shut down, I just put my laptop into sleep, and when I come back, it comes right back up where I was.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'd say-
that's in the default settings that Windows sets up for fast boot and hibernating, and it works for most people. It works great.
Yeah,
Well, when-
generally speaking, fast boot is a Windows person's friend, as long as they're not using alternate operating systems,
Yeah.
say a UBS
USB.
source, such as a flash drive or something like that, to launch
Yeah.
an alternate
Right.
OS like Linux.
Yeah,
Wayne, you wanted to add, Wayne?
It's right on the shutdown menu. You got a choice of hibernate or sleep or restart, on your menu. So I just click on sleep, and then it goes to sleep.
No, sleep is something else. There are
What is-
four
ahead.
sleep states in Windows.
Right.
There's S1, which is standby, S2, which is a little deeper, S3, which may or may not be available on various machines, which is hibernate, and there's at least one other that is S4, which is the true hibernate.
S5.
S5. S4 is, S3 and S4, one or the other may not be available on all devices.
Right.
All I
S5
see is
usually
just
not.
one thing. It says sleep.
Yeah, well, sleep is standby.
Bob, let's say that Bob's being technical and precise on his answer, because there's 5 stages.
5 states.
For us laymen, we only see sleep and hibernate and don't distinguish between the 2, which is what I would like to ask is, what is the difference between sleep and hibernate?
The
If you lose
easiest-
power or the battery dies, you'll lose everything that's going on if you choose sleep,
If you choose sleep.
because there is no file.
Right. Basically speaking, sleep mode blanks your screen to black,
Yeah.
and that reduces the major power consumption of a laptop. However, the rest of the computer is actually running, but at a low power level, so that it's
Right.
kind of like a trickle
Yep.
out of a water faucet. Now, if you then open up your laptop, closing the
Yeah.
laptop does the same thing as put it to sleep, usually, unless you change something. When you open the laptop lid, it'll automatically start waking up. If
Yep.
you leave your unit open, like it was just sitting there on the desktop, tap any key or on the keyboard, it doesn't matter what it is, it'll wake up from sleep. And you just
Yeah.
start continue doing whatever your work is on the system. I use sleep mode on a lot of mine just to blank the screen out, turning off
Yeah.
that power consumption.
Thank you.
Every once in a while, I have to reboot though, to make sure I get cleaned up.
Yeah, Windows has always had a habit of having to be rebooted every 10 days or so, maximum. But the better and safer way of doing it is once a week, such as on the weekend. Just restart it once, and the next weekend, restart it again.
Right. Okay, let's move on to a new subject, new question, new direction. Dennis, what do you got? Oh, nothing. Okay.
That's the
Yada,
first.
did you have a question?
I'm
Not
waiting for the
tonight.
printer one.
Oh,
Go ahead about printer.
Well, I've got a new printer now, but I bought a new printer because the printer I had, it started to run out of toner. I
So
put the new toner in, and it would not recognize the new one. And matter of fact, I have one with the laser and one with the regular, just the tonal bottle. Both of them will not take the new toner.
did
And
you?
one is the Hewlett Packard, and the other one's Lessmark.
Yeah, but now, did you get refurbished toner cartridge or ink cartridges, or did you get brand new ones?
Brand new.
Brand new? I would have sent them back and gotten a replacement.
Yeah.
Well, I sent the one back, and I thought, well, I'm not going to get a replacement because if I'm having problems with two printers, I mean, okay, one's laser, one's the toner. There's something I don't know. Something's wrong.
No,
Something's
for many years, they have a smart chip in ink cartridges and toner cartridges. And if
Yep.
you go below a certain level and then change it out, a lot of times that change out is sent back and they recycle it, but they don't know that the chip said it's unusable, and they don't have a way of correcting that problem. So whoever,
Yada, how do you know it wasn't working? What kind of problem were you having when you put the cartridge in there? And let's talk about the HP first.
all right. It said there was no toner.
right,
It would
Was
not
it
accept.
toner or ink?
Well, the toner. I mean, the ink, the laser.
yeah,
It's
toner.
a laser printer.
It's a laser printer,
Okay, and you pulled out the cartridge,
right?
you reinserted the cartridge, and it said, and the cover closed correctly, right?
Right.
And then it said no cartridge inserted.
I don't remember what it said. It just said no ink, or I'm not sure what it said.
No toner.
No toner, or no, it wouldn't print because it didn't accept the toner.
Right. And that's a microchip that's in the toner cartridge. If it gets below a certain level, it automatically kills that cartridge. But a lot of people send those back in for refurbishing, and the company that refills the toner cartridge doesn't know that it's bad.
Okay, so that's an option, that there's a problem with that. I'm assuming that you've done the simplest thing, which is remove the cartridge, examine it, make sure there's no plastic tape covering anything. There's often a strip you have to remove.
Right, that was
You
out.
did all those procedures. You took the cartridge and you did this
Yes.
side to side, and then you inserted it into the printer. I'm being graphic here, but this is my memory on what you got
That's
to
correct.
do
That's correct.
procedurally with a printer. I mean, with a laser printer. And you did
Right.
all that, and it came back and said, no cartridge, no ink found.
That's
Right.
because of that chip.
Okay.
Well,
How
the
old
thing
is
that
this
got
printer?
me is, the other one, the Lexmark is with the toner cartridges, and it did the same thing practically
It worked-
within the same week. So
works the
I mean,
same way.
two of them at the same time.
It
So,
works the same
Yeah,
way.
that's
It has
strange
a
that you,
computer chip in the ink cartridges, and once that says there's no more ink, and somebody sends it back in to refurbish it, they refill the ink, but they don't know that the cartridge chip is saying no away, no way. And this is a very known problem in both cases.
Yeah, but they're brand new. I mean, they weren't. I mean, they did not say refurbished. I mean, they were new cartridges.
I've seen a lot of them being sold without
okay,
saying
so- but we
refurbished.
don't know we don't know. We can only inject what we see, and we're trying to help her. It's kind of unusual, the fact you had two different printers have this similar problem, but I'm assuming that the error messages you are receiving are actually at the device and not on your PC.
Right, right.
They're coming from the printer
From the
itself.
device,
Okay,
from the
so
printers. Yeah.
it's coincidental that you replaced them both, I guess.
Here's one piece of advice. Any of the printers that you replaced with a new one, like it sounds like you did with the LaserJet, bottom line is the initial cartridge you received is only 50% full. This is a normal thing. It includes inkjet printers at the same time. They're 50% full only. And why they do it? Because they want you to buy a new cartridge sooner
Okay, but-
than later.
But there's nothing you can do about that. You just know that's a fact, right?
Right.
Okay, all right. So it's information. But
Where
you did
did
not
she buy
solve
the-
your problem. Beata, what are you going to do next?
Well, I bought a new printer,
What printer did you buy?
a brother,
A
but
Brothers.
a laser, but still laser.
Okay.
Brother.
I got two brothers
And is that one working for you?
Oh yeah, really, really nice.
It
So
is.
the old printers, where are those going?
Well, they're sitting here right now.
Okay, so this is part of the conversation. What do you do with leftover electronics that have served their purposes? Where do we take them?
Well, every now and then our village or one of the villages around here will have a day that you can turn them in.
So you need to find an electronics recycling event
Right.
or a facility that takes them,
Right.
right? Because there are facilities. I know there's one in Naperville, there's one here in Batavia. I don't know about by you in LaGrange Park area. I'm sure if I did a quick look, maybe Wayne
Burr
could.
Ridge. In Burr Ridge, there's a place that takes recycle.
Also check a lot of retailers, especially like Best Buy. They will take stuff in exchange, but also
Yeah.
they may take an item that you don't want anymore and properly get it recycled.
Oh, okay. I can check on that then.
There's
too. Okay.
two ways of doing it. I think Staples might do the same thing.
Well, let me just mention the LaserJet is CCS's that if I turn that in, that's no more.
That's a discussion at a board meeting.
Right. So
Okay, so we kind of hit this one on the head. Beata
I'm
bought a new
curious.
printer. Yes, Wayne?
Yeah, curious, where did she buy the cartridges?
Amazon. For the LaserJet, I did it from Amazon. The other
Ah,
one was
that's
Best
the
Buy.
problem. That's your problem.
That was the problem? Shouldn't
Yeah.
have done that?
Probably wasn't an original HP cartridge.
Probably not. They probably were,
Yeah.
relabeled.
Yep,
Amazon does not always sell its own products. They
right.
sometimes have other people sell for them. Dennis has got his hands up. Yes, Dennis.
I did a little bit of searching here, and I'm on the HP website, and they're talking about, getting an error message of tone or low, even though it's not, that kind of thing. And one of the final things they talk about cleaning
Yeah.
the heads and that kind of stuff, make sure there's no protective tape on there. But one of the final things they say is some HP printers have a reset function that can be used to clear error messages. To perform a reset, follow these steps. Turn off the printer, disconnect the power cord from the back of your printer, wait at least 30 seconds to reconnect the power cord, turn on the printer. So I don't know, I just threw that out.
Actually, the time you might want to wait is 10 minutes
10 minutes. Okay.
to get the memory cleared.
Right.
Thank you, Dennis. That's a good information there.
Also, if you don't have automatic firmware updates coming in, do a manual check if you can from your maintenance settings. There should be a maintenance setting for check for firmware update.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You might want
I
to
got
clean
a
the
great
contacts.
question there. Anyone else want to talk about this printer issue?
You might want to be cleaning the contacts on the back of the printer for the cartridge.
Clean
Okay.
the contacts.
Clean the contacts.
You want to make sure that the box that you got this printer cartridge in says that it has a chip, because some of them don't have the chip, even though they claim to be from HP.
Well, I don't know if the box is going to tell you it's going to have a chip.
No,
Yeah,
they won't.
I've seen that occasionally there's paper jammed inside the printer and you don't realize it's there. And that could also confuse it.
Very true. If it's at a critical
Yeah.
spot, it could block everything, and it's a little teeny little itsy bitsy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Shall we go on to any other subjects? Questions for the group? No? Hey, Drew, we got bad video of you. Can't see you. You need a little.
Yeah. I have a lighting problem, and I have a new higher quality camera that's doing worse than my lower quality camera.
Yeah, you're kind of silhouetted here, So
I have two lamps right behind me. I don't know, maybe there's
Behind you, but what's in front of you?
nothing.
He's just worried
That's
about the FBI
the problem. You're in a
poster.
shadow.
He's just worried about the FBI poster on him.
Yeah.
shh.
It's this
Okay,
new age.
all right.
It's this new age verification.
Shall we go into topics for the evening? Yes, we shall.
Yeah.
All right, the first item that I had up is under the idea of what you could do what you can use your old equipment for. And one of them is, I can't say I really love this idea, but you could convert an old PC to run Android TV. And I will pull that up. Let's see. Why aren't you doing this?
PC to run Android TV.
Unable to open. Oh, great. Sorry, gentlemen. Just give me a second here to recover. Okay. So there is some very good step-by-steps in what you could do on how to do this. But you'll need to follow the steps here. I don't know if anyone has an interest in turning their PC into a Android TV box, but you would want to download the software here that they show you here. They give you the ISOs to do it. And then I will pull up the next part of the article that talks about how to do it. You need at least 30 gigs on your hard drive. Let's see if this comes up. And you'll want to use Rufus to create a bootable drive from the ISO image that you're downloading. From there, you can download Rufus if you need to. And I'm not going to walk through the steps on doing this, but you would download the ISO, use Rufus to make a bootable USB stick, and then you'll be loading that onto a new machine or onto your old machine. What that will do is it will put Android TV onto that box. Here's a great video. Oh, browsers, what? Oh, sorry. Why would you tell me this? Browser. Hate it when this. Sorry. There we go. Let's see if that does. I would also recommend you watch this video, which will give you some really good step-by-step procedures on how to turn your PC into a into Android TV. So I'm not going to play the whole video. You have the link to it. Once you've installed it, you'll be able to utilize, let's see, it will boot up and look very similar to
my actual TV. Quick system check. Running.
Sorry, don't want to give you too much of this, but as you can see, you'll get probably the most current version of Android TV, and you'll be able to use it to do your own streaming. You could stream right to your PC, or right to your computer screen, or if you hook your PC up to a TV, you'll be able to stream right to that. Kind of an abbreviated discussion on this. Anyone have any questions about wanting to turn their old PC into an Android TV?
Well, I had
Well, I
I'm
would
sorry.
say go out and spend $20 on an Android TV and plug it in.
Okay, would you have a recommendation?
Yeah, the Walmart On.
Okay, now is that Android TV or is that Google TV?
It's Google TV.
It's Google TV, okay, which is running a version of Android, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I concur with you about your statement about the ONN.
that's from Walmart.
Their high-end Pro Box, if you want to go high-end, is about $45, but they have one for $25.
Last fall, I played with your concept. I downloaded the software. I put it on a flash stick, and it does work as advertised. But I don't watch as much TV as I used to, so the end result was I kind of dropped it. But it does work as advertised. I forget how much memory it said you should have. It might work with 4, but probably might need 8 gigs of memory.
Yeah, this is 1998.
Yeah, there you go. $19.88 for the cheapest one. Very limited control.
Yeah, and they're
Now, if
saying-
you got a PC, you'll be able to get great specs and great speed. You'll be able to drive 4K if you really wanted,
Well,
because you probably have a faster or more storage
if
than.
you look at the descriptions there, they all run with 1.5 to 2 gigabytes. So even a cheap entry level laptop that's only got 4K of memory and you can't put more in it if you wanted to, can run the Android TV.
Right.
And if it has an output for HDMI, you can put a cable into that and plug it into a TV set and actually see Android TV on your TV. Or you can use it in for a monitor.
Yeah. I don't know if you could hook this up to a really old TV computer, because
Yeah.
not all really old computers have video in.
Well, no, those are all video outs. Normally, they don't have a video in. So I was on a laptop. It had HDMI output port instead of old VGA. It had 4 gigs of fixed memory. It had, I think, a 64 gigabyte SSD drive. And I just loaded the software into that. I took a 6-foot cable, plugged it into the laptop's HDMI panel, and I plugged it into my HDMI capable TV, switched to that port, and I was watching Android TV.
Yep.
Couldn't get any simpler.
Yeah. My current laptop, the one I'm on, can do HDMI in or out.
It's seldom you find an input HDMI port. And why that is, I can't tell you, but usually the only thing you get on a laptop is an output port of whatever is running on the computer to display on an external monitor or TV with HDMI capability.
Yeah, I have a 25-foot cable that comes out of my Android TV box, like that little on box, and plugs into a HDMI to USB-C adapter that goes into my laptop. And then when I go into OBS Studio,
Hello?
it sees the adapter and plays the TV right on my screen.
Yeah, Joe.
So this brings up a conversation that we're leading into next, is for those of us that use streaming boxes or streaming devices, what are we using?
I think so.
Tim, are you using any kind of streaming device?
Yes.
And I'll kind of go down the list here.
I use Roku, and I used to use years ago Fire Stick. Both work perfectly fine, but I settled on Roku as being better than the Fire Stick, partly because one of the main pushes for the Fire Sticks is Prime streaming service, and I didn't want to go to the Prime streaming service.
Right. All right. Thank you. And how long have you had that Roku that you're using?
Longer than Methuselah, I'd say. It's got to be.
You feel you need to upgrade it
It's got
to keep up
no.
with
Hey,
what's going on?
listen. This is the old hockey puck, and they came with a blazed number on it of a 1, 2, 3, and I think a 4, and I've got a 2, but Roku keeps trying to get me to upgrade. It's working. What the heck do I want?
Okay.
I just want it working when I want to watch television for some reason. It works fine. You plug it in. I prefer Ethernet cable to Wi-Fi. I have a little 8 gigabyte USB drive plugged in for when you have to have a catalog first loaded into the device from a particular source, and then an output HDMI cable to the TV. I just changed to that port number on my remote and start playing.
Okay. Beata, are you using any streaming devices?
I'm using the Fire Stick.
You use a Fire Stick, and you like the Fire Stick?
Yeah, I mean, I don't use it every night or every day, but when I do go into it, I like it. And I've
Okay.
had it for just a little over 2 years, so,
Okay,
but I like it.
thank you. Bert?
Yeah, I have a Roku, and I had one, an older one, but then recently I got a newer one that has a higher capability of sound amplification. Plugs in HDMI, and even this Roku has a rechargeable. It doesn't use batteries. You recharge it off of this extra box that
Okay.
has the sound system.
That's pretty good.
So I've been very happy with that, although I have many different ways I look at streaming. As a matter of fact, HP on my computer just offered an HP TV app, which has some things on it. It's kind of like not much there, but it's free, so it's part of the computer
Okay,
from
thank
HP.
you.
Hmm.
Drew?
I also have
Sorry, go ahead.
access to Pluto, which I don't use much, and that's aside from the regular apps that might be Paramount or Disney or HBO or that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Drew?
I have two TVs. My living room TV is a smart TV that has the Android operating system on it, Google TV. And then I also have in my living room a switch box that has in it an Android TV or Google TV external box. And that way I can, that has an HDMI out. The TV doesn't have an HDMI out, it only has in. So if I want to watch a sporting event and record it, and I use the cable that comes out of the Android TV into my computer, and then out of the computer and into the TV, and then I can pause and fast forward while I'm watching the sporting event. In my bedroom, I have an old-fashioned TV that's not a smart TV, and it has Google TV on it. I used to have Fire Sticks, both in the living room and in the bedroom. I got rid of them. I got sick and tired of all their advertising and the fact that they don't allow you to use your own launcher. Google allows you to use your own launcher. So I have, when my TV boots up, it has its own special launcher menu that only has on it the apps that I want and no other advertising.
Thank you, Drew. Wayne? You can't hear
Wayne,
you.
you're muted.
We have Xfinity, which
All
is
right.
part of our HOA.
All right, so you got no streaming.
Well, it streams, all these TVs have, except the one has a box, the others have these Wi-Fi boxes.
Right. Okay. Dennis, what are you using?
I bought a couple Rokus. I really just installed them. I haven't played with them yet. Right now, I still have Astound TV, but I plan on getting rid of it and going with maybe like YouTube TV or something.
Okay, those would be apps, but you got the Rokus as your streaming devices.
Yeah, so that I can use some older TVs for YouTube TV.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Tom?
Sorry, I stepped away on you guys. I don't
That's
know
okay.
a lot about what you're talking about.
We're talking about streaming devices. Are you using any streaming devices?
I guess I'll have to say no. I've got an indoor antenna.
Okay, all right. No
Only
streaming
123
devices.
channels.
Okay. Bob?
In the past, I have used the TiVo family of devices, which included TiVo Stream. TiVo is pretty much going out of business these days, so I have not replaced it. I have Comcast Xfinity and of its apps and capabilities. I have never activated any subscriptions. Frankly, I don't have time for TV these days.
Okay.
I do a lot of volunteering.
All right. And Donna, if you want to chime in or not. And
if nobody
Hens?
else, if nobody else does, I have a TiVo experience.
Okay.
I have two TiVo boxes, one in the living room, one in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And the one in the living room has a hard drive that's failing on me, and it doesn't always stay booted up. And my bedroom one is making a whirring noise. So I went online and I discovered that as long as my living room TV is still bootable, I can order a hard drive off Amazon. It cost me $109, and I can basically use this special app that you download off the internet and transfer the OS to the new hard drive, put the new hard drive in the box. Then my other box has the operating system on the motherboard. You just pop in a blank hard drive, it formats it, and puts the OS on it. TiVo doesn't sell boxes anymore, but they're still providing TV guide services to my TVs.
Yes.
I got one other tip that some might be interested in. This was something that I came across on a YouTube video about television and streaming, and they said that there's in the works for Comcast / Xfinity, since they got rid of their old subscription television package. They are supposedly in negotiations with YouTube to have them provide the streaming content to their customers who sign up for that service.
Oh,
What
that's
it's going to
interesting.
cost, I have no idea.
And for those of you who don't have a DVR anymore, a lot of people that have DVRs or had DVRs, if you switch to YouTube, it's hard for you to have a sports game. Let's say there's 2 football games on TV and you want to flip between the 2 of them. With a YouTube TV, if you flip from one to the other, you lose you can't buffer it and skip over the commercials. So what I did is I bought a switch box that has a remote, and I've got 2 streaming devices, and I put one of them on channel A, one of them on channel B, and then I use the remote for the switch box to flip between the 2 sports shows.
And that works?
Oh, it works perfectly.
Okay.
Because the switch box plugs into the TV. I only have one input on my TV and plugs into that. And then the remote switches between the 2 different Google TV devices that I have plugged into it.
Sounds like you need a new 1 billion-inch TV.
Yeah. But I get by with the one input because I have an external switch box.
Sure. Smart, being innovative. Anyone else want to discuss on this streaming?
Has anyone been trying to do DVR functions with Next Gen TV?
Ooh, good.
No.
No.
I investigated heavily into digital video recorders that I could record something and watch it and buffer it, and I looked as high as $300 for boxes and could not find one. So I ended up buying a $23 HDMI adapter for my computer, and that's what I plug in and record with. And OBS Studio looks at it as a standard input device. And for those of you who don't know, OBS Studio, what I do is OBS Studio is recording to a I think it's an FLX file or an FVX file, or VLX file or whatever the hell it is. And while it's recording and writing to that file, you can open the video player VLC and start playing the video from the beginning. So
Wow.
OBS is recording and VLC is playing from the same file at the same time.
That's pretty cool.
And
I
then
was-
VLC has a web interface, and you can use your phone as a remote control to pause and fast forward. So you don't even have to touch your computer.
Bob, you were going to add?
I was just leafing through some Google search results, and it turns out there are now some PVR devices, including one from Silicon Dust, a home run, which will do ATSC3, Next Gen TV. There are limitations, severe limitations on recording and playback, but there are now devices that will do that. And I have previously, in a different meeting, I mentioned the Zapper Box. These are all about $200 devices, depending on what you add to them.
Mhm.
Right.
And you have to stay within your home network.
Okay. Anyone else want to add on this? The only device that wasn't mentioned was my device, which I'm still using a NVIDIA Shield, which is still being updated. I just got a new update on my NVIDIA Shield not long ago. So that's still trucking along. Can't believe that old device is still getting updates to this day.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got a smart TV. It's got Google TV. We have an older Apple TV box, but we never use it anymore because the smart TV's got the Apple TV app, so you don't need the device anymore. So it just sits.
Right. That's what my sister does.
Yeah, pretty much it works for us. I'd like to make a new changes. I'd like to change subject and go into something new. On my list, there's two more that I had that I did not send out to the group. And I just was putting these together, finishing touches on these two discussions and yesterday and today. One of them is one that came up to my wife. She got a notification from work that they were downsizing her Gmail space, and she needed to do some purge and make copies of all her business email correspondence and offload it. So
I have a solution for that.
well, I did too. Okay, but okay, we can go to yours, but let me discuss mine first, please. There's multiple ways of doing this, but Google getting Gmails are not necessarily as easy as getting it from Outlook. Outlook makes it a little easier. I talked to my son-in-law who's in IT, and he's the one who coached us through this, and he was just racking his head. He's like, God, Google, Outlook, I would have had this done in seconds, but Google took like a half hour to get through all this thing. But here's what I've got for you guys. And I'm going to show you what I put together on this. Where do I have it? Da-da-da. I can actually just tell you about it. I don't even have to show you anything other than you need to have your Gmail account open in your browser. Then open another tab, and I want you to type, everyone can type this if they have a Gmail account, you can type, bear with me a second. I will put this right in the chat, what you type. And just give me a moment. I'm not as fluid as everybody else is at this. There you go. It is go to takeout.google.com.
Yep.
Did I deflate what you were going to talk about, Drew?
Oh, absolutely not. I got a better
Okay.
solution.
All right, as long as you got another way. All right, so if I show you what this looks like, let me share my screen. This is take out Google. This is how you could copy everything from your Google account. The first thing you need to do is over here where I have, it shows select all. It's going to say by default, it's going to say deselect all by default. That means all these boxes here are already checked. You want to deselect them all. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling in much more than you need. Okay, so then what you would do, if you need to just worry about your mail, you come down to mail. Here, you can see it here is Google Photos, Google Playbooks, Google Movies, Play Store, shopping, your wallet. You can get copies of all this stuff. There's mail. Mail right here. You click on mail. I believe you do all mail data included, and just leave that as okay. And then you would go, where do I do this? At the bottom, I believe. Next step. And it's going to export once. How often you could set up frequencies, what kind of file size it's going to give you. And what will happen, I'm sorry, let me finish this, all these selections right here, file size, blah, blah, blah. And then you could create the export. What it will do is it's going to create a zip file of all your emails in a zip, and then it's going to send you an email to download this file. And you could download this entire file compressed to your own local hard drive. And that's it. That's all it takes. Pretty simple. You can download your Google Drive, you can download the other components, but this is a good thing if you should be concerned over your account getting hacked. This is good to have a local copy that you create every once in a while.
Does it do the contacts as well? When it
You can
says
set up-
mail?
It's in that Google Takeout. Let me see if contacts was in there.
I don't think. And would you still have email in your Gmail account online? That all removed?
No, it doesn't remove anything.
It just gives you a copy.
It gives you a copy.
Yeah, I made a copy and sent it back to you, so you'd have one more, but the one more would be a zipped file.
Right.
What can you do with the zip file though? If you lose your account, can you reload that to a new account, or how does it work to unzip?
Drew?
Well, I gave a presentation. I don't know if all of you have heard of AppCug. I did a presentation to AppCug a couple of weeks ago to about 120 people or so. And I've done 2 other user groups, and I'll be doing a 3rd group in September. To a program called Mailstore Home. And Mailstore Home, while you're sharing, if you go to mailstore.com.
Okay, but I did want to point to Donna. Do you see this contacts here?
Oh, okay.
Okay, contacts does have a checkbox. So yes, you
Okay.
can download contacts as
Okay.
V cards. All right. Okay. So, but this does work for backing up your Gmail account. So you wanted me to go somewhere else?
mailstore.com.
MAIL.
Store.com. And look for under products, go to home. Mailstore Home. Yep. What Mailstore Home does, it's a completely free application. Unfortunately, it only runs in Windows. It doesn't work in Linux or Mac. But what it does is its whole purpose in life is to back up your email. And if you back up your Gmail, it creates a database. And you can optionally turn on indexing. and it will index all of your mail and all of your attachments, your PDF files, your Word files, everything. And you can back up your entire Gmail account, and then it'll index everything. So you can go, it has its own search engine. So you can go into the search engine, type in somebody's name or type in the word giraffe, and it'll pull up every single email within 2 seconds. And you can optionally have it remove mail from the server. If your Gmail account gets compromised or you lose access to it, it has a restore function, and you can restore all of your email to a new account. I'm in the process of moving my email from Gmail over to a hosting company called DreamHost. So I back up my Gmail to a file, and then I have in MailStore configured my DreamHost account, and you just say restore and restore it to this account, and poof, it goes up to that account. But part of the point is it works with Outlook, Exchange, any IMAP server that you have. It can read PST files from Outlook, and it builds a database that you can use to search all of your email. And if you need to delete mail from the server because your company says you got to delete mail from the server, you can back up your entire inbox or all your folders and delete what you want from the server. You'll still have the ability to open it on your PC.
I believe it also saves all the folders. So if you've got a lot of your.
All the nesting and well, they call them labels, but yeah, it keeps all the
Right.
substructure in
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Yeah, it backs up everything.
And it may even include your trash bin too. So, Donna? Okay. Any other comments on this? I thought this was very invaluable, this backing up your Gmail account.
Yeah.
Okay. That take back worked pretty good. It did take a little time for it to create this zip file. A few hours actually for it to do it, but then we got a download today, a link to the download. You just click the email and it downloads it right to your local account, and boom, we were done.
Now, when you open the zip file, what's inside of it that you use? What do you use to open and read the mail that's in there?
That's a good question, because now I got to go look for that zip file to answer.
It'll load into Thunderbird. It'll load into Thunderbird.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
And if you want to restore it, you should have Thunderbird in IMAP mode.
Mm-hmm.
Can you save from different email accounts like Yahoo or whatever? Or
No,
is
this.
just the Gmail?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about this takeout or take back. I'm sorry, take back for Google, for Gmail. That's strictly for Google and Gmail accounts.
That's Google Takeout.
Right,
Yeah.
Google Takeout. I call take.
Yeah.
That's right.
Home Store will work for Yahoo or any other email account you have.
Yeah, that works for
Mail Store
everything.
can't. Okay.
MailStore does.
Right. The other one does. That too was showing an example, and it's free. So that's a good thing. You could be able to use that to back up your stuff, because if your email account gets hacked, you have no way of restoring it all. You could lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people that migrated from Comcast to Yahoo because Comcast is forcing people to. And I know people personally that when they had their account moved to Yahoo, they lost all of their inbox.
Mm-hmm.
If they had backed up everything with MailStore Home, they could have restored it to their Yahoo account.
Well, I had remarkably little difficulty with that transition. However, I had very little stuff in my Comcast email account and no contacts.
Well, I have to say Yahoo Mail sucks. They have advertising. I mean, it's 4 columns before you, advertising on the far right, advertising before you even see your email. I've just switched my email when I can to iCloud or Gmail. I
Oh,
will
and you're just
refuse
filled
to
with-
use it.
They're
I
filled
hate
with
it.
spam. So much spam email
It's
comes in.
junk.
Yeah.
Into
It's just
Yahoo.
junk.
It's all.
Except
Hey.
for what's inside of the email, of the webmail itself, I've been able to limit a lot of that by using Ghostery in my browser.
Okay.
Most browsers do not support block lists any longer.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to comment on this? No. Okay. I do recommend you guys check that out and give it a whirl if you have a Gmail account. It does work. It was pretty easy to do this. The next thing I had as a subject, which I thought I ran across this video, and this video has to do with your long-term storage media. That is your hard drives, your SSDs, your USBs, and other stuff that you have for archiving purposes. That is, you made backups of your computers and you put those hard drives on a shelf. You have USB drives filled with data and it's sitting somewhere. You have maybe an SSD somewhere that's sitting with data. The problem is they get what's called bit rot. And over time, all drives lose data. They just forget what's there, and they'll lose a couple of bits here and there to atrophy, and thus your file may no longer be readable or have artifacts in it. There's a really good YouTube out there. Guy's a little winded, but and I'll put the link in the chat here so you guys can see this video. And he goes through some of the things you need to know about refreshing a drive. And I will show you just a couple of little things that came out of this. In his video, I did this little screenshot right here. He says, a hard drive, you need to rewrite all the data every 3 years. An SSD, you need to read the data once a year. And then USB drives, memory cards, read all data once a year. USB and memory general quality ones, you need to rewrite all that data. So now it comes to, how do I do this? You know, one way is on a hard drive is, let's say you have only a portion of that drive have data on it. And the drive might be, let's say a 1 gigabyte drive, and you're only using 300 gigs. 1 terabyte drive, I'm sorry. A 1 terabyte drive and you're using 300 gigs. So what he suggests is you just recopy that 300 gigs to a new folder on that drive. And that will be a read and a write. So you'll refresh that and then delete that other original. So you could do that. And the guy walks through different steps of procedures that you could do if you have more data, that you could maybe do blocks of it and transfer it within the drive to get it to rewrite. He's not necessarily saying you need to reback this stuff up from one source to another, but within the drive itself, you can move it around. There's other things that you could do to do this, and he suggests there's software you can use. Terracopy, the most recent version, does allow you to do verification, read and write. You can transfer, read, and verify a file as being done. There is another software that he recommends for hard drives, and this one I will show you. I'll put all this stuff in the links here. No, here.
I need to do this for my own brain. It sits on the shelf and loses data.
Okay, this software is old. This was written, I think, in 2013. But It still works. It does not work on my server, but it did work on my Windows 11 machines. So it's pure and soft. It's called Disk Fresh. And Disk Fresh, I don't know if I put it on this machine yet, right here. Sorry. Disk Fresh app. Yes. Where is it? There it is. Hopefully you can see this screen here. If you run the software, you choose a drive, it'll show you your drive letters. And if you have an SSD, you only need to do the read-only function, because just reading an SSD refreshes it, the data. Means the controller actually goes through and verifies all the checksums as it's reading and making sure everything's in place on an SSD. This disk refresh works really good on SSDs. You can also choose to not do a read-only. You can do a verify and do a refresh. And on a physical drive, you could either do it on a partition that's already parted, or you can do it on the whole drive itself.
Cool.
Okay. And then did I load in Terracopy? Terracopy app. Now the Terracopy app, I think you guys should still be seeing this, correct? You see Terracopy?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And on Terracopy, you have verify as an option. So I can choose as a source, add files or folders. I could just choose my C drive, open. I don't know if it did me do, no, it can't be that. It's gotta be folders, source, folders, select folder, and you could check the whole thing. There it goes. And then it's adding all this stuff in here, and let's see if it does this right. It's still adding because I got a pretty darn big drive.
You can see it working there up in the left corner.
Right, you could see it. It's cranking through, and I'm not going to actually do anything to this other than tell it to verify the data is there. So I just wanted to give you guys a couple of sources here, solutions, because stop this operation. Yes. Yeah, because once I choose to select, I could choose test, and it'll go through and it'll test all the data. Terracopy will.
Yeah, one thing that you have to take into account, and I had this recently happen on a machine running Linux that I hadn't used in a long time, and I had corruption. Bottom line is, any SSD, any flash drive, they all have electronic media. It saves every bit as a capacitor charge, and when that dissipates, that's when you have the bit rot and start losing detailed information. So you have to keep it charged up at least once a year to keep it safe and sound. With a hard drive, usually even many more than 3 years, you can still read most of the content of the hard drive. the big problem with hard drives is you have to worry about failure of the head movement mechanism failing, or froze up bearings on the spindle, in which case you may have a drive that has the information you want, it just doesn't work. Some people, if they are really experimenting with their hardware and that, if they can get an exact type drive that is working, they might be able to successfully transfer the platter from the drive they want to recover from and put it in place of the platter in that drive, and get it to work at least one time to get a backup copy that can be restored to any kind of drive. This is how a lot of data recovery companies work with old spinning hard drives, is they get a hold of the same make model of drive and that. They take them up, both drives apart. They transfer the platter that has the information you want to the other drive, and they just use them once. And when they got a whole backup of the information that, both drives get junked.
That's a last resort.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's a last
it's
resort.
Not an
So,
absolute guarantee.
But bit rot is a real problem that happens to all of our files.
Yes.
You know, it's the gamma rays are hitting us all the time. Bits are getting changed every time, every moment, including in our brains. Like Drew was saying, you know, I got bit rot here. So,
And this also
Dementia.
applies to optical media as well, even Blu-rays, and it can get even worse there. But general optical drives are obsolete at this point. However, some people still have them, need them, and do use them, but they use a different kind of media that's more expensive. Instead of having an aluminum foil between two pieces of thin plastic that a laser burns holes through, that's the recording, they have gold leaf between the two pieces of plastic. And that lasts a lot longer, more than twice the lifetime of a average optical drive media. But that suffers bit rot as well, especially aluminum.
has anyone tried any of these software or solutions, or have another approach for dealing with bit rot, or, you know, refreshing your drives? This is not something I considered over time. I didn't really ponder it too much.
I have Disk Sentinel, which we got a discount on it from APCUG.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got that on.
And if you look in the chat, Hard Disk Sentinel is one of the links that I put in the chat.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I know that one of my SSDs, according to Sentinel, and I got it from there too, is down to 92% from 100.
Well, that's wow. So it's lost already 8%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a couple of years.
You really must pound on it.
It's running 24/7. I usually have at least 2 virtual machines going.
Yeah. So yeah, you're using it the way it's supposed to be used. Has anyone else tried to? I mean, Bob, you make backups all the time. Is this not something you run into, or you got different procedures?
I won't use a backup that's more than about a year old to do any kind of restore operation. I recently was messing around with trying to remove AI components from Windows 11.
Right.
And if you're not careful about what you run and what you do with the registry, you're probably looking at doing a rollback. System restore wouldn't work for me. So fortunately, I had all the .reg files that this particular item had created. So I had both the forward and the backward versions. And the only thing I lost were a couple of Windows Store apps, which I brought back quite easily. But
Mhm.
as far as bit rot goes, I haven't really run into it. I know that some of the older formats have been problematic. File formats that are from programs that are no longer in use. And that's more of a threat to old data than actually losing bits and pieces of it. Because once you lose the format and the ability to read it, you're in pretty bad trouble. And that's the problem. A lot of formats are going out of use.
Right. Like DVDs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm even talking about file formats in
Oh,
Windows.
file formats. Okay.
Bert has some.
So what are we going to do when our DVDs and other formats go out of place, go out of style?
Well, a lot of
Keep
times
some old players.
Get
Well,
some
a lot
old
of
players.
times-
I mean, I asked a neighbor across the street. I went over and gave him a bunch of DVDs that I thought he'd be interested in, and he said, "Well, thank you, except I don't have a player for one of these."
That's
And it was
Neither
just
do I.
a simple DVD player. And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
no, that's a
Yeah.
fact because optical media has gone out of favor. Hardly any companies are producing the drives anymore. So the end result is if you don't happen to have a drive around that'll read that media, it's useless to you. Bert has a question.
Yes, Bert. Bert.
Well, of course, all the things we mentioned are fine, but what happens when you put your data up in the cloud? In terms of its status and how's it, it's in a sense, is it being verified there constantly when it's stored in iCloud or OneDrive or whatever else?
That's a very good question. What I do to avoid a problem with that is my primary documents live either on Google or Microsoft, and I back them up to pCloud, so I have two copies on the in the cloud. The cloud provider is supposed to back up all of their data, so you shouldn't have drive rot in the cloud.
No, you shouldn't. You would think that that would be correct. But the answer, Bert, you asked a good question that I don't think anyone here is qualified to answer because none of us work in a server farm.
Well, here's another
Yeah.
thing. Because of a lot of the research that I do and collect data for various meetings and so forth, there have been a lot of people complaining about OneDrive losing a lot of their data. And basically speaking, when they talk to Microsoft about the problem that they cannot get their data back because they either don't have or a backup plan at Microsoft data farms, or they don't want to restore the backup because it's too convoluted and time consuming.
Yes, people, when they do backups, focus on having more than one copy of the data on their PC, but very rarely does anybody ever discuss having more than one copy of what you have in the cloud.
Which is like why I showed that takeout where you can download what's in your Google Drive, your cloud account there.
Well, you also have Microsoft's is changing their policy very soon here. I don't have an exact date, and basically they're going to force everybody's data up to OneDrive, whether they have the capacity or not. And some people, in order to keep their data, might have to actually purchase additional storage from Microsoft to hold it in, because they're not all on MS365, where you get at
Yep.
least a terabyte of space. For
There's no way Microsoft would get away with having no local storage.
well,
There's no way they'll get away with it.
that's
Home
what,
Edition, maybe they can do that, but Pro Upward, they've got too many business users who do this.
that's what they're
Right.
trying
Business
to do.
users will not tolerate their stuff going up to OneDrive.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what I'm reading and hearing in videos galore for months now.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff buzzing around on the internet and on YouTube that's absolutely false.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a lot of people telling me that they can't find their files. That's because they're not looking in OneDrive, because they moved it all up there from automatic syncing, and it's removed from their local drive other than the name and an icon image that shows a cloud.
So in generality, this is not a common, but it does it can happen.
It's becoming the default, especially for home. For Pro, it's also going to be the default, but you can set it back and you can reset everything. Microsoft would not dare take it away from Pro because of small business use.
Right.
And of course, on iPhones, everything goes to iCloud. And
Yeah.
you have to back it up there. It's the only way to switch from one phone to another.
iCloud is an option. You don't have to use iCloud. I don't use iCloud at all.
Yeah,
Well,
they
it's
only
like
give you a gig or
iCloud is
two
the
of space.
backup of iPhones.
Right.
Yes, that is correct.
That's true.
But it's not mandatory to use. And and especially if you bought a phone that has, let's say, 5 gigabytes of you have 5 gigabytes of storage on iCloud, but your phone has 128 gigabytes of storage. That just doesn't work.
99 cents a month.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought those were two really good topics to discuss. And then I could go into our other topics that I had sent out, which were things. One of the things was, what are we going to do as physical medias disappear? We kind of touched on that about CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays. They're kind of fading away, and that streaming devices are going to be what's going to take its place. Does everyone feel good about this, or?
Well, I have a prediction. The younger generation, a lot of people I know under the age of 40 don't own computers. And now Android and Apple has yet to, I don't know if they've released it yet, but Android, if you get a Google phone or a Samsung phone, all you need is a dumb monitor, and you can plug HDMI into your phone and get a desktop operating system on that monitor. And with a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, you have a computer. You don't need a real Windows computer anymore.
Thank you, Drew. So what are we going to do with our content that we currently have? I did discuss in previous meetings how to take your CDs, your music CDs, to load them into iTunes, to convert them over to MP3s. I think I've also shown how to use Make MKV to take your videos and transfer those to your hard drive. Does anyone else have any techniques that they're using to move their stuff forward as technology changes?
There are a few programs that I've only used a few times that are converters. They'll Handbrake, I think, is one of them.
Yeah,
I haven't
Handbrake
used
is a good one.
Handbrake in a long time now, but they will take in one format and put it out as another format. And there are
Right.
quite a few of these
Yeah.
programs around on the internet.
Yeah, VLC can now convert formats too.
It does.
Yeah.
Not, it was, I thought it was just a player.
No, it does a lot of things.
Oh no! In fact, when I was first starting to edit the videos, they were very large output. Okay, and what you have to do in many instances, you use Handbrake after you've created the modified video to shrink it back into a normal MP4 format. So it does compression, and that's one of its main purposes, along with converting from one file type to another type. And it's got a billion other little features that some people use every now and then, not on a regular basis. By the way, I think you skipped number 3.
Number 3. Oh, well, why?
Well, those are different than what.
No,
we
no,
talked
no.
about
I'll circle back to that one.
That's fine.
But, I kind of felt that we touched on number 3, but I'll be happy to circle back to that on Beata's behalf. But I just want to know, does anyone else have any ideas on how they're moving their analog or defuncting digital catalogs forward? How are you guys moving your archives and stuff?
Well, I have a large CD collection, but what I've discovered is that I have a subscription to YouTube Music, and I can get to all of the albums that I own just going there.
Okay, but you have to be connected to online to be able to listen to them.
Yeah, so
So if you're traveling out west where you have no internet, no cellular service, how are you going to listen to your music?
I have a certain amount stored on my phone.
Okay.
But for the bulk of it, you're right, I'd be screwed.
I mean,
Get yourself a Starlink subscription and put it on vacation mode.
oh, now
It's
you're-
just $5 a month
yes.
in vacation mode. You do have to buy the equipment though.
Right.
Yeah.
But Starlink, I think we have somebody who visits our group who goes traveling around and does use Starlink.
Donna does. Donna uses Starlink.
But anyway, that's a little digression from
Right.
moving our formats forward.
You punctured a hole in my balloon and deflated me, Bob.
But yeah, Starlink is more expensive than most people would want, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
How much was it a month?
In vacation mode, it's $5 a month to retain
That's in
the
vacation
service.
mode. That means you're not using it.
Right.
Okay.
If you
that's
use
not-
it,
that's
it's
not active.
If
mode.
you use it, it's more expensive and slower than regular internet services.
Right. Donna would be able to tell us if she was listening. She'd be able to tell us what the speed is and what she's paying.
Well, we've had this discussion in another meeting.
I think so. Okay. And we're not going to get stuck on that. So has anyone else have any ways in which they're moving their stuff forward? No. Okay. I'd love to hear somebody tell us how they're converting their vinyl across. What are they doing? How are they physically doing it? And what software you're using? And how do you start and stop? And
I have a friend who's, I don't know what it cost him, but he bought a high-tech record player that you put the record on and it has outputs for your computer, and it allows you to record records right to your computer.
Okay. It's, I know that it's this. I'm just looking for somebody to discuss this, present this. Wayne says he's biting at the bit.
Yeah.
Do you still own any vinyl?
No, I got rid of it. But the thing is, vinyl's coming back.
Yeah.
Well, you're no help. You got rid of it.
Yeah, the software, of course, is stuff like Audacity.
Okay.
And we have had presentations way back a few years
Oh,
about
yeah,
exactly
I know.
how you do
And
it.
this is nothing we've done recently, has discussed on how to move your vinyl collection forward.
The problem is the amount of time it takes because you have to do it in real time.
You have to do it in real time. Correct. There's no
Yeah.
way you can speed up
and-
that
and if-
33 and a third any faster.
It's pure
And
analog.
if you want lossless file formats, you're going to need
Yes.
space.
Oh, yeah. There is
Yes,
the
you want-
need for storage
want, like-
space.
You want to like the chipmunks, you can do it faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is software that can take those copies and decelerate them. I mean, that's not hard to do with what's called video editing software, but you can use it for the audio track only. And so,
I
yes,
guess you could if you could play it at a higher rate, but now you're going to be affecting your quality and stuff like that. So,
and you'll be putting additional wear and tear on the vinyl.
as well as on the needle and all that other
Yeah.
good stuff.
But it's the vinyl you can't replace.
Right. Okay. Now back to topic number 3 that we needed to talk about. And that is, why do printers still cause so many problems? And this goes back to Beata, and I kind of thought we talked about this, but Tim says, no, we have not.
No,
So we have, wireless printing frustrations. Why does this happen? Every now and then you go to print to that printer and the printer says, I'm not here. I'm in La La Land. And the printer Q just says, no printer found. I don't know where he's at. Anyone else want to reflect? Why does this happen?
Driver.
I gave up on owning printers. I don't even have one.
You don't, okay, that's not a solution here. Bert,
Well, you're talking about two different issues, printers and Wi-Fi.
okay.
In both Windows and Linux, which are the two operating systems I know something about, both of those functions are very complicated. There's a number of different parts of the operating system where they live. Windows has, among other things, the print spooler, the printer drivers, and drivers are a very complex matter in Windows. Even driverless printers, it's still complicated. In Linux, you have a system called CUPS, which is also complicated.
Yeah.
And wireless, again, you have several layers and many modules. And you have specific firmware, specific drivers, and it's awfully difficult to get the whole house of cards stacked up and to keep it stacked. And then
about
something
faxes?
malicious happens and changes have to be made for security reasons. The print spooler in Windows at one time was recommended to be disabled because of a security issue, print nightmare. And similar things have happened in Linux. So it's not just Windows users. Everybody's having problems with these things.
I remember back in the day when I used to have to print at work some tremendously large data files to a line printer. And I had to basically turn off the print spooler because it could not handle the data size of, lots of megabytes of data to be pumped through it. The print spooler couldn't handle it. So I had to disable it, but that brings back old memories of Windows 7 days and XP.
And they haven't solved those problems.
Right. I'm sorry, Bert was trying to say something and you got stepped on.
What about faxes with printers that have that feature? I've seen, we used to plug in a landline, but I don't know if there's Wi-Fi capability for printers nowadays for faxes.
I
There's
have a
software for
Magic
that.
Jack phone line that I can use for faxes if I had a fax machine.
But
Well, there are
does a fax
services
need
that
a
you can
landline
use.
to send and receive?
There are services you can use that go through somebody else as apps. But it used to be the printer you would connect it to a landline, but no, people don't use a lot of landlines anymore.
Correct.
So
Anyone-
faxing is about as popular as LP records.
Right. But there is one institution that will not give up faxes, and that's the medical institution. Medical field won't do it because it cannot be hacked. It cannot be altered. It's a bit by bit direct relationship. So, and it's between the sender and the receiver, and nobody else can get in between. Unless, of course, you're the Russians and the Israelis and, the people from Prague and the people from China and the people, you guys are Venezuelans, don't forget South America in there somewhere. Faxes, I don't know of any other way to do it. Can you do it through an IP?
You can do it through the eFax, or they have online fax services where you can send and receive faxes.
Right.
Yeah, but then you're sending your data that's private through them.
Yeah.
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 It's
If you don't have a landline, you can't do it.
there are no copper phone lines anymore. They don't exist.
Right.
I've got a landline, but it's over the internet now. I switched
Now
mine
that
over
would
to the internet.
that would work.
Well, it's
Yeah.
UMA.
That would
But
work
it's-
for a fax line
Yeah,
because it still is a phone number. I mean, you still have a line.
right. Yep.
You have a phone system,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
Bert does not.
It used
So-
to be that, you would get junk faxes and you wanted to get rid of them because that's what you only used it. We had all kinds of advertising coming through on faxes,
Right. Yeah.
and that deterred a lot of people.
And that's now a dying technology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certainly driver updates for all the printers, and you really have to check because there's so many changes that have come along in the internals as being the most important thing.
So, okay, so the other thing is do you buy an expensive printer that has cheap ink, or do you buy a cheap printer that has expensive ink?
Well, I have a client that's going to get a Xerox printer delivered tomorrow, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, they're on a click charge, right? Is this a business?
It's a business, but it's replacing a similar one that was an older model before.
Okay. So,
Mhm.
like if you bought an Epson EcoTank printer, which costs more, but your inks are less, versus an HP that the printer costs you cheap, but the inks cost you an arm and a leg.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the better way to go?
It's
I print on
expensive
my
any
next
way
door
you do
neighbor's
it.
inkjet.
What was that, Drew?
My next door neighbor, I have access to his printer. So if I
Oh, okay,
need to
that's a
print-
cheap shot. I think, Bert, you had something to say?
I use a printer that's where you get charged every month for a number of copies, and that's just what you need to do. The ones that were larger toner ones are newer printers that came before the inkjet that I have.
So yours is on a subscription service?
Right.
Okay, all right.
And I use 500 copies a month, and it's up to $26 now.
Wow, you print out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I used to use more.
I have a multifunction Epson, which does not have subscriptions. The ink is still available, and it wants genuine cartridges. If I don't do a lot of printing, I do waste a lot of ink on having to clean the nozzles every once in a while. And basically, the printer was pretty cheap, and the inks are pretty expensive and getting more expensive. However, that's what works out for me with low volumes of printing.
Mm.
And I can scan with it. And let's see what I can copy with it. Color or black and white. Pretty decent quality copies. The scans can be absolutely beautiful. It can handle photos and photo paper. But I don't do much of that because of the amount of ink that it uses. And I don't really do a lot with photos, especially not as hard copy.
Mm.
I've got color laser printer. My wife has a color laser printer. Cartridges are not cheap though.
No.
When I had a color laser, it was about $500 a set of cartridges.
Yeah. But I quit working off of Linux. We discussed that. We discussed that at our Linux meeting. I've got a solution to it, but I haven't gotten around to printing it yet.
Okay.
Tom has a question.
Any other last comments or questions for the group?
I can tell you that I've got the Epson EcoTank, and the reason I went that way was because I like the high quality print of pictures of anything. I used to have a printer, an Epson with cartridges, but the cartridges cost were killing me, and they just didn't last long. So I figured I'd go with the bottles of ink and fill it up that way. And it makes excellent pictures, and I love what it can do. I do a good deal of printing, and I can make pictures I could put on a wall.
Yep.
So what can I say? I enjoy what it can do. It does scanning, double-sided print. It works with almost any kind of paper you put into it.
Okay, thank you. Any other last questions or comments for the group? No. I'm going to stop the recording and say
Recording
thank you
stopped.
to everybody for coming to